Hey guys, it's Steve. Welcome to the channel. Today we're talking about a case that's actually pretty interesting because it involves the mental health system and stuff like that. It's the Ronnie O'Neal case. It's a gentleman that actually ended up sadly killing almost his whole family and then represented himself in court after initially being found not competent to stand trial. They allowed him to represent himself, which I think is going to be um, brought up in future deliberations with this case because I think the state dropped the ball, allowing somebody that was obviously or is obviously was suffering from what I believe was schizophrenia. That's just my opinion, not a doctor or anything, but I know the symptoms and stuff. Um, he actually had talked on a 911 call about and also explained about white demons that were like coming out of his girlfriend and stuff, which is a symptom of schizophrenia. In the trial, it almost seems like he's getting audio stimulation. If you actually watch the beginning of his opening argument, it actually looks like he's hearing voices and really trying to respond and having a hesitation. I've actually worked with schizophrenics for about 5 years, and I see Ronnie O'Neal as like a textbook case of somebody that's experiencing psychosis and experiencing schizophrenic symptoms. I think when he killed his family that he was in a full-blown schizophrenic psychosis. And if that's the case, then he should have actually been found not guilty by reason of insanity and probably um, been at a mental health hospital because I truly believe that he was mentally ill and that he is mentally ill and that he probably is actually a paranoid schizophrenic who was in an active psychosis when he killed his family. Um, just because to me it doesn't make sense that a normal person would just do that. I know it does happen, but if you actually check up on this case, you'll be able to see that he's clearly mentally ill and should not have been able to represent himself. So I actually wrote down a couple timelines of some funny things, a couple funny parts in the trial, and then I wrote down some other stuff too.
Like I told you earlier, you will know the truth, whether in this trial or the next one. Better believe it. If you think I'm here to play around with y'all, God damn it, I'm not.
All right, Mr. O'Neal, please stop using swearing language. It's not appropriate in a closing argument.
That was one of the funny parts in the trial. That's actually kind of a viral part of his case. Let's see here. Do 1220 here.
Why that is? Because I want you to know the actual facts. I didn't kill Kenyatta Band. But I want you to tell it like it is if you're going to tell it.
And like he's representing himself pro se, but then in his closing argument he actually admits to killing his girlfriend. So I that in itself should prove that he's not mentally competent to stand trial, because if you were actually competent in an actual defense of this case, you wouldn't admit fault at the end. So that really like is not good for, this case. Let's see here. So, and then another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is I also feel like he could have a case for tampering with a witness, because one of the detectives, like in the police department that was investigating his case, um, or a local police department at least, end up adopting his son, who was one of the victims in his case. Um, I think that Ronnie O'Neal actually would probably have a case for like tampering with a witness, just because, you know, how much do you think that the child's testimony was swayed by being around police officers, detectives, things like this? So he could actually make a pretty good argument for a future trial, because stating that the police thwarted his child's testimony by adopting him, and that should actually be thrown out. So I think the state dropped the ball with that by allowing that to happen. Let's see if there was any other thing I wanted to talk about. And then, one of my main points was just like allowing someone that's obviously like mentally ill to like, represent themselves. So we can go ahead and listen to a little bit of the trial and see what's up here. Here we go.
I'm going to sustain.
I'm talking to people.
Mr. O'Neal, listen, please just keep in mind this is not personal towards the prosecutors. Please keep your comments directed towards the evidence and the law. Thank you.
I know for a fact Kenyatta Barron's recording from her phone did not record calls sped up like that.
No, Jeff now he's talking about facts, not evidence of what he knows.
Again, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as you were instructed, the closing arguments are just that. They're not the evidence or the instruction on the law. It's just what the parties believe the evidence shows or does not show. All right? Thank you.
You heard Mr. Khalil Brown. You've been hearing me for 2 weeks now, telling you that they committed criminal acts against me with the 911 calls and that fraudulent video that they just showed y'all. Now, I'm going to prove it to you. You heard Khalil Brown. He said that he was actually sure that I only hit Kenyatta Barron 3 times. You heard. I called him to tell you that. I ain't running from nothing. They didn't call Khalil Brown to tell you that. I did. You have to ask yourself why that is. Because I want you to know the actual facts. I did kill Kenyatta Barron. But I want you to tell it like it is if you're going to tell it. Khalil Brown told you I hit it 3 times. Now let's listen to this audio here that they played for y'all where you can hear someone hitting her up to 10 to 15 times. But they want to make the excuse that Mr. Khalil Brown was 14 years old when he saw that. But you intend to use my son, who was 7.5 years old, at the time of the incident. Now ain't that something? You don't want to believe Khalil Brown because he was 14, but you're ready to believe everything my son tells you because he was 7.5. He sat here and told you what my son told you. You guys heard what my son said. And you also heard that I rebutted everything that he said because he said something totally different in the beginning of this case. Everything that he said was contradictory to what he said in the beginning of this case when Detective Thomas Dirks interviewed him just 7 days after the event. And then they did another interview with a woman named Jennifer Miller, who's an expert at getting children to tell what happened to them. They purposely got her to do this interview because she's an expert with children.
And then, another thing, like getting experts to interview his son and stuff like this could easily be considered like coaching or tampering with a witness. So there's a lot of like, open-ended questions, for his case. But the biggest in wrapping up this whole video, guys, is that he shouldn't have been able to represent himself because he's obviously somebody that is suffering from schizophrenia and attacks someone in a full-blown schizophrenic psychosis. So I disagree with the judge on him being competent to stand trial. Leave your thoughts on this case. This is a very, very sad case of a person that did all this vicious crime, But it is a mental health thing, another person that slept through the cracks. So anyway, guys, any thoughts on this Ronnie O'Neal case? Leave in the comments. Thank you.